Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization.
An area known today as Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, Syria, and Turkey. In it rests a rich history.
In ancient years long past, the rivers Tigris and Euphrates nurtured civilizations with unique cultures, art, and languages. They reared such great civilizations as the ancient Assyrian, Akkadian, and Sumerian kingdoms, and nearly 4,000 years ago, witnessed the peak of the Great Babylonia and the birth of modern law.
As the powerful king of Babylonia led his kingdom into growing immensity and becoming great, the many conquered peoples merged within the kingdom met with discord. King Hammurabi provided unity through his creation of the most influential written law in ancient history, the Code of Hammurabi.
This astonishingly impressive code provided Babylonia with the developed justice system and over time spread throughout the ancient world, ultimately becoming nestled within our own modern forms of law.
This was the birth of law.
The year is 1792 BCE. Sin-Muballit, the fifth king of Babylon, has recently tried to expand his small kingdom by conquering the thriving Larsa to the south. He failed. Growing sickly and unable to hold his place as ruler, the king of Babylon yielded his throne to his young son, Hammurabi.
The bright-eyed Hammurabi was ready to show what he was capable of as the sixth king of Babylon, and he soon became the man who has been described as the ruler who chiefly established the greatness of Babylon, the world's first metropolis.
He began modestly, first aspiring to capture the weaker cities of Uruk and Isim, which he added to his small claim of less than 50 square miles. He spent the next several years fortifying his cities and earning the title Bani Matim, or Builder of the Land. Many of his projects attest to his sincere desire to improve the lives of his subjects.
Years later, Hammurabi attacked, making another appearance in a big way by conquering Larsa, Ashur, Mari, and Asnuna, the region's strongest kingdoms and Babylonia's biggest threats. He employed many cunning strategies to win his triumph, often allying with neighboring kingdoms when convenient, only to dissolve their alliance and take those with whom he recently fought side by side. He dammed the life-giving water sources of Larsa, weakening his rival before striking.
One by one, Hammurabi took each city across Mesopotamia, leaving even the once great Mari a pile of rubble in his wake, notably the only city he destroyed. The other conquered cities were assimilated into Babylonia and improved upon as new additions to the kingdom.
After taking possession of so many cities across Mesopotamia, Hammurabi found his citizens in slight disarray. His situation was, as explained by historian Paul Kirbajek in his book Babylon, Mesopotamia, and the Birth of Civilization, a result of the many different cultures now present in Babylonia.
In earlier times, all communities had felt themselves to be joint members of the same family, all equally servants under the eyes of the gods.
These joint members of the same family all had the same understanding of what the gods expected of them, which was then to be enforced by the king. In Hammurabi's Babylonia, however, each tribe or city often had a slightly different opinion of the god's will, which made settling disputes difficult. This led Hammurabi to the incredible creation of the Code of Hammurabi.
In the archaeological site of Susa in Iran, the air buzzed with commotion in the Common Era of 1902 as something new and exciting was unearthed. Standing at 7 feet and 5 inches, a stele covered in etchings of ancient Babylonian cuneiform was revealed by the French archaeologists excavating the site. Sitting atop the list of 282 written laws was the enthroned Shamash, the Babylonian god of justice, granting the standing Hammurabi a measuring rod and tape, symbols of the law.
After translating the carved cruciform, laws regarding property rights, family matters, assault issues, and court rights were found engraved all over this stele. This was the first time man had set eyes on the Code of Hammurabi in centuries.
Then a new and bell called by name me, Hammurabi, to bring about the rule of righteousness in the land, to destroy the wicked and the evildoers, so that the strong should not harm the weak, so that I should rule over the black-headed people like Shamash, and enlighten the land, to further the well-being of mankind.
So reads the prologue to the Great Code, making clear Hammurabi's good intentions. However, these may seem contradicted by the harsh punishments that were to be enacted upon those who were foolish or unfortunate enough to break the law. The 196th law declared,
"If a man put out the eye of another man, his eye shall be put out."
Known as lex talionis, some may recognize this mindset in the phrase, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. This is prevalent throughout the code, even calling for the death of a builder whose building's collapse kills a man. To many, this may seem cruel, but this progressive code of law also exhibits many laws spurred by mercy.
the wise Hammurabi developed an ancient form of minimum wage, laying out the payment due for the work of doctors, herdsmen, sailors, and others. His code was also the first to presume innocence until proven guilty, which is one of the most important aspects of the code to survive to this day. An accuser was to bring the accused to court himself, and if he charged a capital offense and could not prove the accused's guilt, he himself was to be put to death. This may be an extreme, but it surely discouraged false accusations. Even with all these exemplary laws and statutes, equality was not at the forefront of King Hammurabi's mind. Many differences in punishment occurred depending on what social class the participants belonged to. For example, if a man were to knock out the teeth of his equal, then by way of lex talionis, the code demands his teeth be knocked out too. This changes, however, if the one who had their teeth knocked out in the first place is of lower social class than the attacker. If this is the case, then the attacker is given but a fine to pay and allowed to keep his teeth. Instances like this are scattered throughout the many laws.
Despite the distressing existence of unequal treatment, women, slaves, and the poor were still allotted many rights. They were privileged to have a proper and fair trial should the need arise, and were also allowed an appeal to the king. Women were entitled inheritances, and slaves were able to buy their own freedom. The poor were defended in many laws, including one declaring that a debt in crops was to be cancelled for the year if weather caused the destruction of the grain. Such mercy may seem out of place next to the extreme punishments, but it is clear to see that Hammurabi was earnest in his promise to ensure the well-being of the oppressed.
The stele engraved with the code stood tall and proud in Babylon for centuries, governing the people from its seat inside a temple. As Babylon's power declined, however, it was raided by the Elamites in the 12th century BCE. The victorious Elamites then took the magnificent monument to their capital of Susa, where it was eventually found by archaeologists in 1902, and sent to where it now resides in the Louvre in Paris.
Hammurabi's life ended in 1750 BCE, but his legacy still lives on. Anciently, the footprint of his great code spread beyond Babylonia, becoming an example to other kingdoms and its principles coming to be integrated into many societies. The code's hand can be seen even in mundane activities, such as the seemingly popular assignment of copying the code given to aspiring scribes, attested to by clay fragments with parts of the code etched on them which have been found, some having been dated all the way to the 5th century BCE, over 1,000 years after Hammurabi's rule.
Through its long legacy and centuries of impacting the world of law, we can see that the astounding Code of Hammurabi is quite understandably considered the ancestor of all written codes of law. Indeed, its impact rippled throughout the ancient world, spreading its laws and ideas throughout societies long after Babylon fell. Even today, we can hear Hammurabi's echoes in our own laws as they govern us in a world that may have been much more unstructured and chaotic were it not for King Hammurabi of Babylonia.